They feel like, oh, well, it's not for me. You know, I'm already messed up. But that's quite the opposite, actually. And the messaging has been bad. And, you know, maybe the Christian community has no one to blame but themselves for that. Message is actually quite the opposite. Yeah, the message is he actually wants, especially you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what's awesome about it. It's not that he doesn't want you, that he especially wants you. Yeah, it's quite the opposite. Exactly.
Like if he didn't, he wouldn't have made a way.
Exactly.
And he did.
And he did. And that's why he's good.
You know? Welcome back to Bono's Gaming. This is the Bono's Gamers podcast. I'm here with my buddies Falcon Tactics and Yugi601. How's it going, fellas?
Hey.
Glad to be back.
I love having you guys on here. Love talking to you guys. We're going to talk today about something that I've kind of been thinking about. And then Yugi, you actually approached me about this as well. And I was like, man, I've been thinking about that. Let's do it. So I've been thinking about how games with campaigns that have stories, you know, they pull a lot of things from the Bible, honestly.
Yeah.
They don't always do it on purpose, but there's just certain story elements that are, I guess, classic that we see in life, just in life in general. And some of those things, they play out in Christian scripture, which we call the Bible. And this idea is to look at a game story and just say, hey, how would the gospel of Jesus Christ relate to the story in that game? And so we've got a game we're going to talk about today, and maybe two games even if we have time, and we'll just kind of see where this goes. This is an experiment, but we'll see what happens. What do you got? You picked out a game, didn't you?
I did. So the game I chose that can help us kind of dive into the gospel is Shadow the Colossus. I don't know if any of you guys played it before, but
instantly looking it up.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, Shadow Colossus.
Do we need a spoiler alert? It's an old game.
It's a very old game. I'm not good. Well, yeah, actually, ending spoilers. Minor ending spoilers. I can touch it up so that way people can still watch it though. If you are interested in playing it, I believe they re-released it on PS4. They remastered it, so. Highly recommend it. The music, the orchestra. Anyway,
I love some good music.
Oh man, it's like that music that moves you. So
okay,
without a single it's just all violins and just I love it. Masterpiece. Okay. Yeah. So the premise of the game is you're playing as this man, and he has his partner. His partner passes away. Now this is like implicitly shown. There's not a lot of dialogue in this game, so it starts off his partner's dead and he's taking her to a forbidden, let's say, area that he shouldn't be in. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's an altar in this area, and he lays his partner who is deceased on the altar, and an entity comes to him and says, I can bring her back to life, but you need to slay 16 titans, I believe it is. Now these are huge, giant, hulking monsters. Different types of animals. One of them literally looks like a tower. You got lions, dragons, and to not totally spoil the ending, but this entity, although it looks good, isn't exactly having the person's best interest. And while he does accomplish his goal, it comes at a heavy price. So I think when we discussed it, the way we thought of it was like how, we want to make our own resurrection, right? We want to find a way to, or I'll let you do it. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. You explain it. I'm just clarifying.
So, absolutely. Yeah. So the price. So the entity wants him to slay these 16 titans. Yeah. And he will grant him the wish that he wants, which is to, resurrect his wife, let's say, because again, it's not explicitly told a lot of the dialogue. There's no dialogue,
but and you'll know someone he loves.
Yeah. You'll notice the more he does it, the more like he seems to be losing himself. And in the end, again, like there's a hefty price. While he does get what he wants, it comes at a hefty price. To keep it spoiler free. Gotcha. Again, like we look for our own ways to sometimes like atone for things or try to play God or Like, I think the way you worded it, Bo, I'll let you take it from there. You worded it pretty like better than I could, and how like we're looking for our own way of like resurrecting. That was a great way you put it.
I
Yeah.
don't remember how I put it.
Well,
I can try
well, but
though.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that the way that it's the same and different from the gospel of Jesus is that in this game, this entity is saying, you do this work and then you can earn the resurrection.
right,
And Jesus would say, you can't do the work. I had to come do the work for you, and I am offering you resurrection because of my completed work as
Right.
a gift, right?
Right.
And that's the difference in these two stories,
yeah,
is that we can't atone for the wages of sin, which is death. We can't, so we can't earn resurrection no matter how hard we try, no matter how much good we do. And so in that story, you said like the more work he did, the more he lost himself.
correct.
And even though his loved one is resurrected in the end, he loses himself in the process, right?
Right.
And so,
right. Like the enemy would deceive you and make you think you can do it yourself, though.
yeah,
You see?
yeah,
Because if you think again, and we're in spoiler territory now, if those of you who care about that, but obviously the entity didn't have his best interest, although it looked holy, right? It had the very stereotypical features that you think of when you think like, oh, God came to me, right? Bright lights, shining from above. But of course, it was a lie. The whole thing was a
Yeah.
lie. You know, it was in the end, you actually become one of the monsters that you had to slay. So this game is all boss fights. There's no like mini fights. It's literally just one huge land and boss fight to boss fight to boss fight. So it's amazing that like there's a theme there that you can tap into that's a biblical truth that I think they didn't even intend to do. Look at that. You become the very thing that you ended up fighting, you know, like you become your own enemy thinking you can do things yourself, or being deceived by someone who clearly doesn't have your best interests at heart. And it becomes painfully apparent from the very first boss fight, because, you know, when you play it, you don't think you're doing anything wrong until when you kill that first boss and you see like it's like literally ripping into you. You pass out and then you wake up in front of the same entity, and the entity is like, you know, don't worry about it. It's just part of the process. Like, so sometimes we know things are like obviously wrong, and yet we fight against that instinct in order to do what is our fleshly desires. You know, we want to please ourselves. We want to, you know, get what we think is right. Right.
yeah,
You know, and it's like, and there's multiple ways that people do that. You know, a lot of people, you know, coping with this is difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah.
If I didn't have the truth of the gospel, I would probably not know how to deal with it at all. Right.
yeah,
But because
Yeah.
I'm confident in it, I can, you know, say it was my wife and I was in this scenario. I can rest easy knowing that, you know, she's with the Most High. She's being cradled by Jesus right now, right? But if I had no understanding of that, yeah, I wouldn't know how to process it at all. I'd probably do all types of things to try to cope with it, you know? That's like the plot of almost every movie, right? It's like this person wants to reserve their conscience in some computer system, or they want to rekindle their lost loved one and they want to visit them again. You know, there's always a movie with that theme.
There's this old, really old song, like a spiritual, that I think that says everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
Right.
And I think the meaning of that is not like a literal physical death, but nobody wants to die to themselves. We all want to get there. We want to get to the place of peace, but we don't want to give up the stuff that we want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes you have to. Sometimes, because sometimes the things you want are not the things that are good for you. They're not the things that are best for you. And I mean, we've all been there. We've been there in stuff that like stuff we wanted to buy. Like, how many people are in debt because they wanted the boat and the house and whatever, and now they just have to work constantly to try to pay off the debt before the collectors come, or they get in a bunch of trouble and they lose the house and the boat and are embarrassed in front of everybody because of their massive debt that they've amassed, you know? And
Yeah.
or how many times are people in relationships that they think they want and need, but it's not a healthy one, and it ends up hurting them and destroying them. The good news is that you can get to heaven, it does require you, in a sense, to die to yourself, but you get so much in return when what you turn to is Jesus.
Right.
That story kind of reminds me of the garden a little bit, where that guy says in the game, the entity says, do kill these 16 beasts or monsters or whatever, and you titans. That's what you said, and you'll get your loved one will be resurrected. So he's kind of taking that deliverance, that salvation, into his own hands. He's saying, I'm going to go do this of my own strength, my own willpower, right? And I'm going to be the savior. And in the garden, like, Satan comes and says, did God really say you can't eat of the tree? And Adam and Eve are like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, you're not going to die. Satan's like, you're not going to die if you eat of the tree. You're just going to be like God. And that's the temptation, isn't it? That we want to be like God. We want to take God's place. And that's what he does in the game. He takes God's place.
Right.
I mean, it's fictional, right? So in the game, there's not a gospel to be preached, I guess, but in real life there is, and the reality is that you can't earn it yourself, and when you try to take it into your own hands and do it of your own power, you lose yourself, and you lose, period.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you did all that, and now he can't even spend time with her.
Yeah.
So maybe, assuming there's a realm to where her spirit went, again, like, the game kind of cuts off, but she's back, but like now her loved one is no longer there. There's villagers that are like chasing to try to stop. So when they inevitably arrive, they're going to tell her, hey, your husband, did the forbidden ritual that he knows he shouldn't have done to bring you back. And that could be upsetting, It's like, I'd rather have just waited for you. Why do all this, and now I can't even be with you? You're now a monster that can potentially destroy all of us, right? Because that's kind of a giant elephant in the room. And you know what I mean? And it's like, sometimes you got to just trust on why things happen. A lot of bad things happen, and then we think that it's time for us to take it into our own hands. And, as Christians, we need to remember that we got to submit to his will and trust in him. And it's hard because sometimes God says no, and we don't like that.
Yeah, and sometimes he just says no because he doesn't want you to try to do it yourself.
Right. Right.
Because he doesn't want to see you fail. Sometimes he says no because it's not the right time. The timing's not right. All that makes me think of John 3:16, which I know, like, a lot of people know John 3:16. I'm just going to read it, though. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. That's such a drastic 180 difference from the game, the story in that game.
Right.
Like, if God were truly the entity in that game, he would not have asked that dude to go out and slay 16 titans. He would have said, I'm going to go out and slay the 16 monsters. I'm going to go out and slay the sins. And then I'm going to come back and offer you the gift of resurrection. Because that's how much he loves us. So, very different. I guess that's but that would be the gospel according to Shadow of the Colossus.
There's a profound theme there, and I like that. I don't feel like I have to do that. The work has already been done, and I can rest easy knowing that. I wouldn't have to feel the pressure that, again, in this fictional game he did to do that. I mean, it gets to the point where you look really, you're not the same character. You're like clean, fresh. Like, you could tell he kind of maybe just like threw some clothes on and went on this island, but towards the end of the game, you don't look the same. You're a complete mess, and you can see the toll that it takes. Again, there's a lot of symbolism there,
Yeah.
So it's a heavy toll to want to sometimes take things in your own hands and thinking that you got it versus giving it to God, someone who will handle it, and then you won't have that pressure on you, and submitting to his will and understanding that it is him that decides what it is that happens.
It really is so much like the Garden of Eden. Like, they're eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil so that they could become like God, so that they would know what God knows, so that they could do what God does. Like,
and it's like, no, you think you know better, but
it brought destruction. It brought destruction to the entire world, and in that game, it destroys him. So I guess that part, in a way, is kind of accurate. Like, that sin brings destruction.
Absolutely,
it eats away at you a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to share the name of the game that I picked, and I'm gonna just because it's more recent, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But in this game, there is a character who travels with you and is your friend. You think he's your friend, and he has a child, and he loves his child, and he's fighting for a better tomorrow for his child's sake. And you get towards the end of the game, you find out. Turns out he's not your friend after all. It's like a double agent kind of scenario, and he betrays you, and he still like claims that he's doing it for his kid. And he says this in the game after he betrays you. He tells you, the first time I held them, the child, I could see the whole galaxy in their eyes. And that quote like really stuck out to me because I was thinking about how, well, it made me think about how God created all things through Jesus. So he literally created the galaxies through Jesus Christ. That's what Scripture tells us and teaches us. But this guy betrays in the game, he betrays everyone who's trying to help him, who's trying to fight against evil. He betrays all of them for a chance to save just himself and his child. That's all he wants. He wants to save his child, but he does that at the cost and the sacrifice of everyone else. That is the complete opposite of the God of the Bible, who allowed his own child to come to earth and to be ridiculed and mocked and beaten and have his flesh ripped off of his back and a crown of thorns hammered down onto his head and a spear jabbed into his side and nails put through his hands and his feet, and he died a horrible, gruesome death on a cross when he had done nothing wrong. He had done nothing to deserve it, just so that he could save everyone else. And so I don't know. I am really intrigued by, like, they try to make you have sympathy for this guy who just wants to save his kid.
Mm-hmm.
And from a worldly perspective, I can see how that makes sense, and I can see how you would have some sympathy for the villain. I think that's been really kind of the last like 4 or 5 years. I've noticed that trend in a lot of movies and games where they want you to feel sympathy for the villain. It didn't used to be like that. You know, you used to be like, the villains were evil. Like what they were doing was bad.
I was about to comment on that. I was like, yeah, I mean, I know I haven't said anything this whole time. I've just been listening. Like you guys are just saying so many amazing things and I'm just trying to take it all in.
That's right.
Yeah, you said that, and that was one of the first thing that popped into my mind. The tone has been like, oh, look at these villains. They actually, their motives are so. I'm like, no, there's still villains. Stop.
Yeah.
In the end, I don't. It's not the motive that makes the act okay. It's the act that describes if it's bad or good.
Absolutely.
I do think that motives are important. That is true.
It does like deepen your understanding of the character. It develops the character more if you don't understand their motivations, right? And
Yeah.
I
But I don't want them to saying it's good. Like
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where it becomes
in doing that, it blurs the lines between good and evil, right? And it kind of puts everybody into a gray area. Like, and I think that's the plan of. I think that's Satan's plan, is to like blur the lines of good and evil and put everybody into this gray zone where you can't you don't even see what's good and evil anymore.
If there is no good and evil, you're walking a neutral path, and it's still gonna lead away from God. So in the end, he still wins in his mind, he wins, air quote, because he doesn't.
Yeah.
No, he's already lost. Yeah, that's a good point, Falcon. Mm-hmm. Very good point. Yeah. They do want you to sympathize with this character who is he's literally destroying thousands and thousands and thousands of innocent lives. And not only innocent lives, but lives of people who are fighting against the thing that is evil in the game.
Mm.
Yeah.
He is sacrificing all of them to save one person, his child. And they want you to feel, bad for him and good about that decision. But that's the wrong decision. Like, it's hard. I try to put myself in his shoes because I am a father. I'm like, man, that would be really hard to do. But how would I live with myself If I knew I was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people because I saved my kid. And that's not the example that we see from God, who it's said right here that I just read. He loved the world so much that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish. Like, he did that because he didn't want anyone to perish, but have eternal life. And a lot of people look at, I'm going to read the next couple of verses, because a lot of people look at Jesus, or even just like the Bible, as this judgmental book that says, it's just a list of things I can't do, like it's taking away all my fun. But here's what the rest of that section says after that part. For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. That is an astounding statement. That is a selfless act, that his son would die so that nobody would perish but have eternal life, and he didn't send him to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but men loved darkness instead of light, because their deeds were evil. Whoa. Everyone who does evil hates the light, and will not come into the light for fear that his deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what he has done has been done through God. And that's so true. Look, this character in the game, he hid his true agenda for almost the entire game from all of the people that are your allies in the game. He deceived all of them. He hid in the darkness. And he hid in the darkness because his deeds were evil. That's what it's like. Like you got a mouse in your kitchen eating all your food, and you go in there and you flip on the light. What does a mouse do? It runs away.
Right.
So evil avoids the light, and you see that in this character. And so even though I feel like in some ways they want to blur those lines, we almost can't get away from this fact that you don't want people to know when you're doing something wrong.
Right.
And then just this profound idea that whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. Like Jesus, again, he did not come into the world to condemn the world. And I think that that's just something that we miss so often. And I think that even a lot of people who claim to be Christians, they look at other people who don't walk in the Christian faith and they condemn them as being some kind of like, oh, well, I can't believe they would act that way. I can't believe that they would participate in that evil deed. And we can very easily get into a mindset of kind of turning up our nose or turning our back on those people who are doing whatever that you disapprove of. And it's so clear that that's not how we're supposed to act. Like, you don't have to approve of it, of what the person's doing, but you also should not condemn them. Jesus didn't come for that. He came to save them. And so in that game, we see this character who he sought to condemn everyone just to save his own child. And God doesn't do that. He risked everything. He gave everything in order to save everyone else.
Right.
So, yeah.
He's like, and drop the mic. That's it, bro.
Yeah, you're right. It's something that no one, at least if you're a parent, would imagine doing, right? Because I've had this conversation with some parents who weren't believers, and I'd be like, would you give your kid up for people you don't know, who probably deserve to not even know you, who probably shouldn't be saved, but you do it for them anyway? Would you do that? And almost every parent would say, of course not. Why would I sacrifice my kid for people that I don't even know, who probably don't even like me anyway?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the good news that I can understand maybe why some people would be a little apprehensive to accept something like that. I'm accepted? Me? Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like you said, it's a lot of people get this self-feeling of condemnation. People feel called out when they hear, certain things about the Bible. They feel like, oh, well, it's not for me. I'm already messed up. but that's quite the opposite, actually. And the messaging has been bad. And, maybe the Christian community has no one to blame but themselves for that. Message is actually quite the opposite. Yeah, the message is he actually wants, especially you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's awesome about it. It's not that he doesn't want you, that he especially wants you.
Yeah,
it's quite the opposite. Exactly. Yeah.
Like if he didn't, he wouldn't have made a way.
Exactly.
And he
did. And he did. And that's why he's
You
good.
know?
That's why he's good.
Yeah. Yeah. He's very good. What do you got to say, Falcon?
Dude,
you writing something down over there?
I was writing down some notes. I don't know. You said something and it stuck out. That's all. I was just, I'm like, I'm not gonna read my notes, personally. So, I'm just gonna let you know.
Because you can't read your notes? Is that why?
No, bro. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's twice now, bro. Strike 2.
It's all good fun.
No. I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. No, it's just because like I don't know. I write my notes in such a way where it's like if I read it out loud, people would be like, "What are you even thinking?" I'm like, "No, listen." I'm like, "I promise I write down what I think about when I hear the thing." So someone will say something, I don't write down what they said. I write down what I thought when they said that.
Yeah, I get that.
No problem, man.
Yeah, you guys were talking. You were talking about. I think you mentioned like the mouse and how it goes to hide. And I wrote down the thought that I had about like pretty much every single time you hide. Every single time you hide, it's because you're like. There's pretty much one reason for hiding. You're in trouble. That's the only reason you're hiding.
Yeah.
And like it's just I don't know. Really put it in perspective,
bro.
Yeah.
It's like one of the coolest things like a mentor of mine like told me was like if you got to look left and right before you do something, you're telling yourself no.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff is written in our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you've got to, like you said, you gotta live with that.
Yeah.
And you start to have this existence where you're constantly looking over your shoulder, and you can't lay down at night with a clear conscience. Like it's not worth it. But the good news is that Jesus didn't come to destroy you because of that. God allowed destruction to come upon himself so that you could be saved and spared. And that's just something that people don't talk about enough. They don't understand. It doesn't make sense to the world that someone would do that for them.
Pretty sure there's a verse in the Bible. I don't remember where it is. I just remember that I was at camp and they said it one time. And it's highlighted in my Bible somewhere. But there's a verse where it's like the Bible to unbelievers. I'm totally paraphrasing and I feel really bad. It's like the Bible to unbelievers sounds like foolishness.
Yeah.
But once you believe in it, it makes sense. It's revealed to you.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also says that God uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And that's what that means. He takes things that the world sees as foolish, and the wise people of the world, it doesn't make any sense to them.
Yeah, just like what we were just saying, how it doesn't make sense that God gave away his child to save the world.
Right.
Exactly. And that's how twisted everything has become because of sin and because of the deceptions of our enemy that the Christian church would call Satan. Everything that God would do, the world would almost do almost all of it the opposite way, And that's how far the deception has spread.
Yeah.
All that to say, hey, there's a lot of games out there and a lot of good stories, and a lot of good games, but they don't all teach you truth. And so one of the things that I think would be cool to just continue to do if we do more of these episodes is just maybe pick a game every time or every other time or something and talk about like what truths does this really portray and what lies does it have too. And just kind of expose those things and talk about what's really true according to the actual gospel that we find in the Bible. So,
right.
I was thinking we're at the end of the podcast pretty much, and I was like, wow, I thought of a game. Dude,
there you go.
I have a game for next time.
Let's save it for next time. I can't wait.
I got it, bro.
Write it in your notes.
Yeah, I'm writing it. I got it. And I'll actually write down the name.
But don't read it to anybody though.
Oh my god.
Oh man. Well, this has been Bono's Gamers episode 3, I think. And Falcon, what are you working on? Where can people find you, buddy?
Dude, I am on YouTube.
Constantly streaming every day.
Dude, literally streaming. I'm streaming on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays, and then sometimes Saturdays. And then you can find me anytime at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. PST or 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. PST on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter and I'm on Instagram, and those links are in the description of my videos if you go check them out.
Nice. Cool. Yuki, what about you?
You can catch me anywhere on everything. I stream Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, and you can look forward to some content coming out. Hopefully by the time you post this, you'll be seeing more regular uploads from me, probably every Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
But yeah, follow me on X if you want to hear me run my trap. That's mostly where I'll be. And feel free to reach out to me anytime about any topic, about anything. I'm open to. Whether you're new to the gospel or seasoned already, I'm open to talking to anyone.
Oh yeah, I should mention that too. You guys can talk to me. I'm sure that Yugi and Bo probably have more wisdom than I do because you guys are old. No, I'm joking. Anyways, but yeah, you hey, I'm sorry. I had to get back at you for the 2 comments you made today, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys can message me too. I'm open to talking about anything, especially if it's the gospel.
Absolutely.
I got you. So.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, thanks, guys. And hey, you guys stay kind and encouraging out there, and we'll catch you on the flippity flip.